Imagine waking up one morning with a realization that completely upends everything you thought you knew about aging. You've lived a full life, ticking off most of the major milestones, career, family, travel, but now as the years roll on, you're more focused on holding on to your health. We all know that heart disease and cancer are the usual suspects when it comes to the leading causes of death. But what if I told you that most people who don't live past 90 aren't actually dying from these obvious culprits? Instead, they're falling prey to something much quieter, much sneakier, 7 hidden factors that no one ever talks about. These threats are subtle, often invisible, and they quietly strip away the years we could have had, leaving us with a future that feels far too short. Now here's the twist. What if the key to a long life isn't found in a magic pill or in a set of genetics, but rather in the small, seemingly insignificant choices we make every single day? These daily habits, when left unchecked, can slowly rob us of our vitality, energy, and, ultimately, our time. In this video, we're going to uncover these unexpected threats to longevity. From habits you didn't even know were harmful to simple lifestyle changes that could make all the difference, we're diving into the science behind it all. Whether you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, these insights will completely shift your perspective on aging and health. So if you want to take control of your future and make sure you're not unknowingly sabotaging your health, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video like this. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Let me know which of these hidden threats surprised you the most, or share any habits you've noticed affecting your own health. Let's start a conversation and help each other live the longest, healthiest lives we can. Stick around till the end, because what you're about to learn might just change everything about how you approach the years ahead. It was early in the morning when Julia, a lively 72-year-old woman, woke up in her small apartment, rubbing her tired eyes. She had always considered herself a healthy person, active, and spry for her age. She went for walks every day, took her vitamins, and made sure to eat vegetables at every meal. But something had started to change in the last few months. No matter how early she went to bed, she felt drained by midday. Her knees ached more than usual, and she was struggling to remember things. Even the small details like where she put her glasses, or the names of old friends she hadn't spoken to in a while. What struck her most, though, was how much her body seemed to resist every effort she made to stay healthy. After an embarrassing fall at the grocery store that left her with a bruised hip, Julia decided it was time to visit her doctor. The results shocked her. While she didn't have any major life-threatening illnesses, she had been unknowingly ignoring factors that were slowly taking a toll on her health. The doctor told her something that Julia had never really considered before. Her chronic sleep issues were more dangerous than she realized. For years, Julia had thought of sleep as something that could be sacrificed to get more done during the day. She didn't need a full 8 hours, she told herself. A quick nap in the afternoon would be enough. But what she hadn't understood was how deeply sleep impacts not just the brain, but the entire body. As she listened, the doctor explained that without proper rest, her immune system was weaker, making her more susceptible to illness and slower to recover from injuries. Her sleep deprivation had been silently accelerating her aging process, leaving her more vulnerable as the years went by. As Julia sat in the doctor's office, listening intently, she couldn't help but think about how many of her friends were in the same boat. She had always prided herself on being a social person, but lately she'd noticed that most of her close friends had either moved away or passed on. And the few that remained were always busy, leading lives that didn't quite include her anymore. When Julia had a cup of coffee with her old friend Helen a few weeks ago, Helen admitted that she hadn't been feeling great either. But it wasn't just the aches and pains of old age that were wearing her down. It was loneliness. For so long, Helen had kept herself busy with hobbies and small social circles. But once she retired, that sense of connection had begun to evaporate, and now every evening felt like a long stretch of silence. For the first time, Julia began to truly understand the toll loneliness could take, not just emotionally but physically as well. It wasn't just that she missed the company, it was that her body was reacting to isolation. Loneliness can affect the body in profound ways, leading to higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which in turn can elevate blood pressure, and increase the risk of heart disease. Studies had shown that loneliness could be just as dangerous as smoking or obesity. It was a reminder that emotional health was deeply connected to physical health. Not long after her doctor's visit, Julia took a hard look at the way she had been living. She had always prided herself on being independent, but now she saw a few areas where she could improve. As she reflected, she realized that in the past few years, she had stopped doing the things she once loved. She no longer walked as far as she used to, and when she did, it was often just around the block. The small amount of movement she did each day had become routine, and she didn't realize how it was affecting her. She remembered when she used to jog through the park with her friends, feeling strong and invigorated. Now her body felt stiffer, less capable, and even a short walk left her winded. It was clear that she had fallen into the trap of thinking that age meant slowing down, but in reality, inactivity was doing far more harm than good. Lack of movement caused muscle atrophy, a weakening of bones, and a decline in circulation. Factors that made it harder for her to stay healthy as she aged. The more Julia thought about it, the more she realized how much her habits had changed over the years. She'd been raised on the idea that food was fuel, but somehow as she got older, her relationship with food became less about nutrition and more about convenience. She ate smaller meals, but often they were packed with processed ingredients and comfort foods that didn't really nourish her. On days when she didn't feel like cooking, she would grab fast food or heat up a frozen dinner. It wasn't until she began to feel sluggish and noticed a gradual weight gain that she understood the impact of those choices. At the doctor's office, she was told that her blood pressure was higher than it should be, and that she had developed early signs of insulin resistance. Her body was showing clear signs of strain, all because she had chosen quick fixes instead of focusing on the real nourishment she needed to thrive. The realization hit her hard. Julia had spent her younger years believing that good food didn't matter as much as being thin or staying active. But now she could see that the foundation of her health depended on what she ate and what she didn't eat. While Julia was grappling with these changes, she received a call from her neighbor Linda, who had been going through something of her own. Linda had been managing high blood pressure for years, but recently she had noticed something disturbing. Her prescription bottles seemed to be growing in number. Every time she went to her doctor, she was prescribed a new medication, and yet despite all these medications, she still felt worse. Linda had always followed her doctor's advice and took her pills as instructed, but the truth was she never really kept track of what she was taking or when. On a recent trip to the pharmacy, Linda learned that some of her medications were interacting in dangerous ways, making her more prone to side effects and confusion. Medication misuse among older adults was a growing issue, and Linda was a victim of it. It wasn't just the medications, though. It was also the fact that Linda had lost track of what was truly essential for her health. While each prescription was meant to manage a specific issue, they were not a cure-all. As Julia listened to Linda's frustration, she realized how important it was to stay vigilant about the medications we take as we age. It's not just about following a doctor's orders. It's about staying informed and making sure we're not inadvertently making our situation worse. As Julia continued to reflect on her own life, she remembered how, for years, she had prided herself on being strong and independent. But there was one part of her life that had always been a struggle: stress. She had been through so much in her life, raising children as a single mother, losing her husband to cancer, and even battling financial setbacks in her earlier years. All of these challenges had contributed to a constant underlying tension in her body. While she had always considered herself resilient, Julia realized now that the constant background stress had taken a silent toll. Her mind was always racing, and her body was in a perpetual state of fight or flight, never fully relaxing. That constant low-level stress wasn't just an emotional burden, it was physical too. High stress levels lead to a release of cortisol, which raises blood pressure, damages the immune system, and accelerates the aging process. Julia could now see how every year of silent worry had contributed to her physical decline. The weight of her past had built up in her body in ways she never fully understood. And then there was the issue of purpose. Julia had always thought that having a purpose was important, but she never realized just how vital it was for longevity. Once she retired, she felt a shift in her identity. For decades, her work had given her structure and meaning. But now that she had stopped working, she found herself drifting. She didn't have a clear reason to get out of bed every morning. Without that anchor, it felt as though something was missing from her life. It wasn't just a vague sense of dissatisfaction. It was a real physical feeling. She wasn't as motivated to care for herself, to stay active, or to be social. And while she tried to keep busy with hobbies and volunteering, it wasn't the same. Studies had shown that people who maintain a sense of purpose in their lives tend to live longer, healthier lives. They're more resilient to stress and tend to have better mental health. Without that sense of direction, it was harder to keep the motivation to live well. Julia hadn't realized it, but her lack of purpose had been eating away at her in ways she never thought possible. Looking back at her life, Julia could now see the hidden reasons behind why so many people don't make it to 90. It wasn't just about the obvious factors like heart disease or cancer. It was the quiet, insidious habits that slowly chipped away at health. Sleep deprivation, loneliness, inactivity, poor diet, medication mismanagement, stress, and a lack of purpose. Each of these elements had contributed to her current health struggles. As Julia sat there, reflecting on all of this, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let these factors control her life. She was going to start paying attention, make changes where needed, and fight back against these silent killers of longevity. It wasn't going to be easy, but she knew it was worth it. And that's the lesson we can all take from Julia's story. It's not just the big obvious things we need to worry about as we age. It's the small, unnoticed habits and factors that can quietly shorten our lives. The good news is, it's never too late to make a change.